I've wrestled about how to begin this homily today. Do I go serious or funny, or a combination of the two? So I've decided to just go all Seinfeld on you. How's that? Is that okay? You ever heard of the law of unintended consequences? The law of unintended consequences. People doing things they think are right, doing things they think are smart, doing the things they think are wise, and come to find out they're not. Every time I read about a new scientific study about what's really healthy for me, I got to confess to you folks, I'm at the age now where I just don't trust these things anymore. Is that bad? I don't know. I think it is. I think it may be bad because I've just got all kinds of stuff. One time I heard somebody say, oh, don't ever eat any chocolate. And now I hear, man, you just got to consume it. But they qualify it. You know what they do? They say, oh, make sure it's dark chocolate. Folks, I love you. And those of you who love dark chocolate, God bless you. But I would rather have someone beat up my mother than eat dark chocolate. I don't care if it would add 20 years to my life. I don't like dark chocolate. Isn't that horrible? I don't like dark chocolate. But the law of unintended consequences is a very powerful reality because what's really true is what you don't know can hurt you. Do you get that? What you don't know can really hurt you. I mean, that's true of temporal things. I won't tell this story too personally, but there was a lady I knew. Can I put it that way? And her car died. And I was going to help her out and look at her car. And so I turned the car on, and the check engine light is on. And I asked her, I said, dear, how long has this engine light been on? Oh, I don't know, a year? So I open the hood and I pull the dipstick out where the oil is. It's dry. I said, dear, how long have you been out of oil? Does the car need oil? Trashed engine, no good. Not going to work anymore. What you don't know can hurt you. The law of unintended consequences is a reality that we have to come to grips with. But what makes it even more difficult is that many times the wisest way of life, and I want you to get this, folks, if you get this, you'll go home today smarter than 90% of the people that you meet. Is that a deal? Can we do that? And if you go home 90% smarter than the people that you meet everywhere around you, you're ahead of the game. The law of unintended consequences also means that I have to become comfortable with the concept of paradox. I have to become comfortable with the concept of paradox. I have to sometimes go against my intuition to really live life to its fullest. And now let me even go further. If we are to posit that there is a God, I happen to do that, by the way. If we are to posit that there is a God and that God has granted eternal life to all of you, then either through negligence or active ignoring, the wisdom of the faith is just, it's just us, so we can be this way. That's just stupid. Doesn't make any sense at all. And so here's the paradox. God grants eternal life to every one of you. Let me make it even be more specific. God grants eternal life to each of you through the death of His Son. Now, the Apostle Paul had this figured out years ago when he said, to the Greeks, that's foolishness. I'm not talking about to Greek Orthodox. That is not who he's talking about. He's talking about the pagan Greeks. To the Greeks, that's foolishness. You mean you're going to give life to each of you, not just God grants eternal life to humanity. No, no, no. God grants eternal life to Mary and Sue and Jim and Tom and Bob and William. Everybody. You are going to live forever. That is a settled issue. At best, physical death is the merest of minor inconveniences. I had a conversation this past week online with somebody who was fussing at me about emotions and so on and so forth. And I told them that the very center of the Orthodox understanding of human life is the concept of sobriety and making our passions tamed and servants on our behalf. Instead of allowing our emotions to run wild. Have you ever seen somebody who allowed their emotions to run wild? Just have a daughter that is terrified of spiders come and tell you there's a spider. That's an emotion running wild, let me tell you. She gets it honest, I hate spiders. So emotions running wild, or feelings running wild, or desires running wild are at the very heart of the reason why you and I have trouble in our lives. They're at the very heart of the reason why marriages have tough times. They're at the very heart of the reason why governments have a difficult time being at peace with one another. Emotions and desires and passions out of whack, untamed, undisciplined, uncontrolled are at the heart of every one of your challenges in your life. Just talk to me about my diet. I'm just being honest with you, folks. The struggle that we have in taming our passions and making our passions what they were meant to be, our servants rather than our masters, is at the very heart. And the paradoxical reality is that it's going to be by losing our life that we find it. It's going to be in giving up our life that we achieve it. It's going to be that God is going to grant and has granted eternal life to each of you in this room today, whether you want it or not. God has granted eternal life to you. You are going to live forever. And now for you to actually learn how to enjoy and embrace and have that eternal life active in your life today, in this life, so that it heals your relationships, it heals your marriages, it heals your friendships, it heals your physical and spiritual body, it heals your fears and your concerns and your worries and your terrors and your confusion. It heals you as a whole person right now. I'm not talking about pie in the sky and the sweet by and by, folks. We used to have a song we sang in my old Protestant world. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Not bad, huh? It's also the problem. Well, thank you. No. I would rather have the money that folds, not the money that But the reality is, many times in our lives, we live our daily lives as if eternity is something later on, when that is insane. You understand that, right? If it's eternity, it works backwards as well as forwards. I asked somebody one time, I said, how long is eternity? They said, oh, it's a long time. I said, no. Eternity is no time at all. Eternity starts now. If it's eternity, it has already started. Eternity is already here. The only problem that we have is we have people living their lives with the unintended consequences of their disconnection to reality. They are not plugged in to the eternity that is already going on around them. They miss the point. They live lives filled with the unintended consequences of their lack of knowledge, or worse yet, their neglect of the faith sometimes they were born into and sometimes they came to later. There was the statistic, let me get my teeth in, excuse me. There was a statistic recently released about Orthodox Christians in the United States. And one of the questions was, how often do you attend a Bible study or a prayer meeting or an adult education class to further your understanding of the faith. 52% of Orthodox Christians in the United States never do that. Never do that. I got to scratch my head about that, gang. And I have to say to you, from the outside, no matter what you claim on the inside, from the outside it looks like you don't care about your soul. That's what it looks like. Is that a fair observation? Maybe not. But it is a real observation that you have to refute. How are you going to refute that? Plug into the reality that the unintended consequences that are gripping your life have to come to a stop. You have to stop allowing life living you, and you start living life because God has given you life. God the Father has given you life paradoxically through the death of His Son. Jesus Christ has destroyed death. Why do you think on this day that we have, I love the Greek word, the apodesis of the feast of the exaltation of the Holy Cross? Apodesis. Tissimini apodesis. It means the leave-taking. We're leaving that feast day and going into the next period of the life of the church. The apodesis, the leave-taking of the feast, is today. And this feast is to remind you of the paradox that God has given each of you eternal life through the death of His Son. And the resurrection of His Son has meant that you are going to live forever. And the good news is you don't have to allow living life by accident to continue tripping you up. You can live your life on purpose, based on the paradoxical notion that if you're going to really gain your life, you got to lose it. If you're going to live forever, then Jesus Christ tells you today in the gospel, if you're going to be my disciple, if you're going to be my follower, if you naming yourself an Orthodox Christian is going to have any merit whatsoever, if it's going to have any meaning other than that an accidental tag you kind of fell into without you really understanding what's going on, if it's ever going to mean anything more than just a happy accident of your birth, you're going to have to shoulder the paradoxical cross that will kill you and give you life. I don't know. Weirdest thing I ever heard in my life. It's like telling me, Father Barnabas, eat all the chocolate cake you want and you'll lose weight. That's how much sense this makes many times. And yet, it really is true. You've heard me say this over and over again, but I want to leave this thought with you today. Because, angels, listen to me. Tomorrow morning, you're going to either put this into practice or you're not. If you put this into practice, you'll have more patience when you drive in your car in traffic. I'm just telling you. If eternal life has already started, then for heaven's sake, the guy cutting you off in front of you is not that big a deal. It's just not. And where you've got to go in this temporary span of time is not nearly as important as actually practicing your faith so that you'll enjoy eternal life. Everything finds its perspective when you live this way. But if you will put this into practice tomorrow, then this sentence that I'm about to tell you will make sense. This will mean, brothers and sisters, that you're going to have to prioritize your faith first in your life. Not your marriage, not your career, not your children, not your education, not your bank account. Everything else in your life has to fall underneath this top priority, and that is, I am going to start living as if I'm going to live forever. And the only way to do that is to die to all of the other lesser desires and passions that keep you enslaved to the unintended consequences of your struggle in your life. On a wall on Mount Athos, that great monastic republic in Greece, a monk centuries ago scrawled these words: "If you die before you die, then when you die, you won't die. Your eternal life has begun. Start acting like it."